Damn, we in the done.
In the dunny.
Comfortable in the done.
Yeah.
Hey, what's your favorite breakfast?
My favorite breakfast overall?
Yeah.
That's too broad. You got to ask questions like...
What's your favorite breakfast utensil?
No, so far we've had, what's your favorite breakfast oatmeal?
Yep.
And what's your favorite breakfast bacon?
Yeah.
So now, like, what's your...
And we had breakfast waffle. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
And cereal.
Oh, yeah.
We pretty much covered all of breakfast at this juncture.
Are you kidding me? We're not even close. What's your favorite breakfast French toast?
Oh my gosh. How many more? Okay. I've never felt more compassion for our listeners than in this moment right now.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're not wrong.
Not wrong. Oh, man. Hey, here's something. Speaking of not wrong, we just shut our eyes and swung for the fences
Why are you lumping the two of us together?
because now that we're right, I'm totally going to align with you.
No, dude. That was me.
That was you.
Mars was indeed in retrograde.
Mars was in retrograde, man. You shut your eyes, swung for the fences, and somehow hit the ball over the fence. It blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, a blind squirrel can find a nut.
That's true. And boy, did you ever on this one.
Yeah.
So Mars in retrograde. So we actually learned that Mars was in retrograde. And to continue our banter with mountain sports, they've referenced us as potentially astrology geniuses.
Yeah. And I'm just going to I'm going to put that after my name.
I've never seen you look so certain as you are right now.
Astrology
I'm an
genius.
astrology genius. That's the face of certainty right there.
If there's one thing I know, it's that I'm a genius with astrology.
And it sure showed, especially how we vacillated. We threw it out there. We corrected ourselves, learned that we were right. You were right, sorry.
Yeah.
And then recorrected ourselves. I love it, man.
Yeah.
But dude, I just wanted to offer you a nice shout for getting Mars in retrograde right, man.
Well, let me throw it right back at you and give you a nice shout. You've shaven your face.
I do see in our notes it says Cody Ugly. Is that what this is?
Well, nice shout, Dr. CB. You shaved your face, but you're growing that rat tail out back.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused.
Dude, your confusion is right on par with my wife's confusion. So I actually botched my beard. I was trimming my beard in the shower the other night and then walked out of the shower and my wife looked at me in what I thought was initially confusion, but really just now the more I think about it was just pure utter disgust. Like, ugh. Like, what is going on with you? But yeah, man.
She saw your face.
She saw my face for what it is, not covered in hair. No mustache to distract, no beard to distract, just my ugly face, man.
Okay, well, so that's her problem to deal with. That's her issue.
Gosh, makes me love her more.
For
Jorts in this face. Golly.
Dude, she really,
Oh,
she really.
shut her eyes and swung for the fences.
We should nominate her for Nobel Peace Prize. Anyways, my issue with it is a little different.
Okay, what do you got?
It's that your hair situation.
Yeah.
Your hair sitch
Yeah.
has gotten a little bit more scraggly.
Uh-huh.
And at the same time, you cleaned up the front. So, you got rid of the dirty stash.
Yep.
But then you got this rat tail that's getting ever longer.
Yeah.
All the while that you keep shaving the sides.
Do you feel disgusted?
Dude, if it's not evident in my tone and intonation, I don't know how to be more clear.
Oh man, I can't get it right these days, man. Yeah, got rid of the dirty stash, the DS, replaced it with the RT, the rat tail, and man,
Tell you what, I could get on board.
Yep.
If you go home
Yep.
tonight, talk to Mrs. Be Nice,
Mm-hmm.
and see if you can get her to braid the rat tail. Then I'm all in.
I might have to get a little more length on the old RT.
It looks close. Looks
think
like
so?
you get a good braid.
There's
going.
some scragglies.
Yeah.
But hey, speaking of the rat tail, so I did get my hair cut a couple weeks ago by Sarah Tilford over there at Wildflower Salon.
Oh yeah.
Gets our first nice shout of the day.
Ah,
One, for her willingness to touch my hair. Like that's a nice shout. Just even if I'm paying you to fix what's going on upstairs, I really respect and appreciate that. But two, I did go out that next day. We had a conversation about that, and I got 2 compliments on my hair that day.
yeah.
One from the guy who was bugging me while I had my headphones in when we talked about this. So what about this is telling you that I want to talk right now? And I think in an effort to like make me feel better, he said, I like your hair.
Oh, he was just calling it for what it was. She did a good job.
She did a good job, man. But so nice shout for one, cleaning up Cody's hair. And then nice shout for she tuned in on the Trust episode and then reposted us and had some nice things to say.
Oh, on the IG?
On the IG.
Yeah, she reposted on the IG.
On the gram.
Thank you. Thanks for the listen.
Yeah, Tilly, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
Bigly appreciates.
Yeah. Speaking of nice shouts, I got a really good one. Another really good one. I feel like I get passionate about these ones that I come up with, or that I feel we need to address.
Mm-hmm.
So, nice shout. It's an art exhibit going on currently. It started September 11th and it's gonna be running through January 9th, and it's at the Kokomo County Center for the Arts, and it's called Parched: The Art of Water in the Southwest. And it was it contains installments. There were 9 artists who, in January of 19, went through a series of immersive discussions that looked at the cultural aspects, the scientific aspects, various aspects of water in our area to understand perspectives and differences in perspectives, and then have created this art installment that opened up in September. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go check it out, Kokomo Center for the Arts, and it'll be running through January 9th.
Oh, very cool. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Relevant.
Super powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful images, relevant in acknowledging climate change and just what is real about the Southwest, and hopefully help to create some sense of urgency for what is going on with the ongoing climate change.
Cool. Yeah, so get there.
Get there.
Yeah. Typically, we have 3 nice shots for the day. And I guess we only planned 2, but then ended up delving out 4.
Yeah.
We each got a nice shout from each other.
Look at you, just creating connection
just
all
generous.
over the place.
When you were saying, too, that you get passionate about these movements and the art, I was thinking this does kind of parallel us, right? I get pumped about people and you get pumped about content.
Yeah. It's kind of, it is the truth.
This is you and I.
It is the way it goes. Speaking of people, what do we got on the docket for today?
Going beyond flag with Jesse Prescott, a massage therapist and functional mobility coach who practices his craft at Kokoro Movement on 7th Avenue, right here in Flagpole, Arizona. Nice. He also hosts the Kokoro Movement Podcast. His emphasis is in his role as a massage therapist and coach is to help people resolve pain. So he places a really large emphasis on the psychosomatic expression of pain, which is something we get into in this pod.
Yeah.
Jesse is a true, well, this is quote for quote on the website, Jesse is a true born and raised flag local who grew up riding BMX and dirt bikes prior to dipping his toes into MMA, Jiu Jitsu, CrossFit, and now, drumroll, mountain biking.
Yeah. Born and raised in Flag and coming around to mountain biking now.
Coming back to mountain biking now. I wonder if we'll go Lake Mary at all on this thing, huh? We'll see. With a self-described obsessive personality, he's taken his craft to the far edges of competition, fascination, and injury.
Well then, let's go beyond flag with
Jesse Prescott. Welcome to Beyond Flag, a Beyond the Pines production, created by, with, and for the people of Flagstaff, building connection in the town we love. We are your hosts,
Dr. Daniel J. Phillips
and Cody Bayles, also known as Dr. Chinchilla Nice Nice. Thanks for tuning in as we go beyond flag, straight from the dunny of our observatory.
All right, here we are in the dunny. We got another guest today.
Yeah, back in the dun, man.
And we're also back in the dun sharing a mic together.
Yeah, so extremely disappointed at this. But, you know, the thing I'm thinking right now is I'm going to go back to ultradrum_02 and whatever I need to do to make that trade to get rid of you, Dan, and get an audio engineer in this joint to help us out, I'm doing it.
So, like, if she throws out, it'll just be a cool meal.
Cool.
You're happy with it?
I'm going to the bank.
Going to the bank. I'm sure they'll be willing to give you a business loan for that.
We'll see. Whatever it takes at this point.
So here we are. We're doing our best, making do with a one mic, sharing one mic, and we're in here with Jesse Prescott. Super excited to have him here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah. And we actually got in touch with you or reached out to you because you were recommended to us for an interview by Jay Mula, good friend of the program.
Yeah.
Jay Mula.
Mula.
Yeah, shout out Jay Mula. And she referenced how you have developed a bit of a knowledge around the psychosomatic expression of emotions as chronic pain. And so that relates to our work, I think, as psychologists. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. But first, before we get into all that, We should probably get to know Jesse a little bit.
Yeah.
And something I noticed when I go to your website is you got the alphabet behind your name.
Yeah.
So I see lumped nakuta 3 dina fruknis kinstretch dunis. What is all these letters, man?
No vowels, just letters.
No vowels.
Oh, there is some vowels.
Oh yeah, I see an A.
Yeah, so those are all just certifications that I have, and the reason why I have those certifications on my website is so that like-minded practitioners can get a hold of me, and we can, commiserate on my podcast if we need to.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so those are the foundations of what I do as a practitioner, because I am a massage therapist and a strength coach, but I combine all the different things into one thing, which is that human in front of me that's in pain, right? And so like the neurokinetic therapy, the NKT, that is my muscle testing background. That's how I figure out where muscle-to-muscle dysfunctions are coming from, and that is the biological aspect of pain. And then DNA is dynamic neuromuscular assessment, and that's where I start to muscle test for a lot of the emotional dysfunctions that is manifesting as physical pain. And then functional range conditioning, FRC, that's joint function, and it just kind of goes on from there. Yeah. So I just have just went on an education rampage, just fueled by frustration of not being able to help people and make them better.
Yeah, I see that. And then the last one I see is DNS, which in my world means did not start.
No, for me it means dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. So that is a form of developmental kinesiology that we use to rehabilitate people. And so there's some people that are so out of touch with their body just in general that we take them all the way back to developmental movement patterns and have them go from the ground up. And so that was like one of the basis of my education. I guess technology works too, but I wanted to learn more about breathing mechanics and core stabilization, and that's where I went for that. And so that is a school based out of Prague. So that was the most interesting education courses that I've taken, because the majority of them are taught by these really soft-spoken women from Prague. And so it's this really dense information that's spoken with such a thick accent. You have to pay attention so hard that by the end of the day, you're just trying to consume as many calories as possible because your brain was just working so hard all day. But just really good. It's a educational journey right there, all those letters.
And something you said earlier was it sounded like the fuel to it was frustration.
Yep.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So people would come in and they would say, this hurts. And with my remedial massage education, I would just massage it, and then they'd be like, well, it still hurts. I'm like, well, why? That doesn't make any sense. And so then the more you learn, the more you understand that humans are inherently complex. And one of my favorite teachers, his name's Dr. Perry Nicholson. His quote is, the human body is under no obligation to make sense to you. And so we just do the best we can. And so the more I learned, the more I understood that I don't know anything, especially now, you know what I mean? So like the more you dive in, the more you know, like the leading pain scientists in the world are still learning stuff. And so we're just kind of have an idea that meets these patterns of the people that come in and how you can help them the best that you can help them, and even then, I have a pretty high success rate at about 70%. Some people, just aren't ready. And so that's how you can tell that there's an emotional component to that.
So 70% of clients that then report a reduction of the pain or
see improvement. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. And so, one of my quotes that I tell my clients all the time is better is better. Yeah. Right. And it's on the path to best. And so, you didn't get rid of it in this one session. Well, how long have you been in pain? Because if you've been in pain for 10 years, then we're not going to get rid of it in an hour. You know what I mean? And plus, that's one of the running jokes in my field of, just even massage therapists, strength coaches physical therapist, whatever, is like, hey, did you do those exercises at home? Well, no. Okay, then that's why you still feel bad. You know what I mean? It's a challenging profession, and that's why I love it so much.
So you mentioned being both a coach and a massage therapist. That's how
Right.
you apply your education, your training currently.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about working with people, are you talking about both in terms of being a coach and being a massage therapist? Or are you mostly referring to that improvement in pain from working one or the other?
So here's one of my other favorite quotes. It depends. It depends on what the person needs, right? And so if they have incomplete movement mechanics, then they're in pain. And so if somebody is coming in and they have chronic pain, and I have established that it's due to some type of physical dysfunction, then we go into coaching them because it's cheaper in the long term. And then they can be in there consistently with me 3 days a week because, like I said, a majority of people aren't going to be proactive at home. So they need to come and see me to have that accountability. And so when people ask me what I do, I don't have a good elevator pitch. You know what I mean? Because it's just like I said, humans are complex and everybody needs different stuff and different attention. You know what I mean? So I combine both coaching and massage most of the time.
So what does your day-to-day look like then?
So it's weird now for obvious reasons. But so I have right now I am sharing the gym with another coach. And so our gym in town is on 7th Avenue. It's called the Flagstaff Fit Collective. And so he coaches primarily in the mornings and I coach afternoon, evenings. And then I do all my massages before that, just kind of whenever people can get in throughout the day. And so, we have 3 to 4 people in there plus one coach. 4 is a lot of people. And with just, today's weirdness, and so, that's kind of my day is I just schedule it around people and around having as minimal people in the gym as we can, but it's been working out so far. Yep.
So small groups. Do you work one-on-one or do you do mostly work with groups?
It's all individualized, but there's multiple people in there at a time. Okay. And so I have people doing stuff that's appropriate for them.
Yeah, I was curious to know, like operating a gym and then in your profession, what it was like with the pandemic, right? So like you're saying, for obvious reasons, it's a little bit different than it was.
Yeah.
What was it like for you managing all the changes in the environment?
It was devastating at first because, they're basically like, well, your profession's illegal now. And I'm like, oh my God. So luckily, massage therapy is very cyclical. It's up and down and up and down. Some months you're really busy. Some months you have no one, and so that's why I started doing the personal training on top of the massage therapy was initially to give myself like a good base to operate from. And so luckily it's almost as if I was preparing for the pandemic, right? Because the majority of my coaching clients stayed on and then we loaned them out equipment and they worked out at home. So I was able to pay like my baseline bills and stuff. So I wasn't impacted too badly, but we have sections of the gym like taped off. This is your section. This is the equipment that you're using. You have to clean it off when you leave. And then we have like a weed sprayer that just has like disinfectant and we spray the whole gym. And then I personally like mop the gym twice a week. As far as my massage therapy practice goes, I kind of just make a show out of it, right? So like when people come in, I spray down the table, wipe off the table, put fresh linens on there. I clean all of my stuff while they're standing there. I clean my hands. I wear a mask the whole time. They wear a mask if they're face up, but if they're face down in the cradle, then I have them take their mask off so they're just not panicking. You know what I mean? And so it's just kind of, it's the weirdest part about this pandemic is just like, be clean and responsible. And people are like, what? I don't want to do that. And it's really weird.
Certainly. And so like March 17th, right?
Yeah.
Coral puts down the gyms have to close. What's your immediate response hearing that information?
Just overwhelming anxiety.
Yeah.
I have been working on my own for the last 5 years. And so, based off of the freedom of working on my own. I'm virtually unemployable. I don't want to go work for anybody. You know what I mean? Unless they're just like really phenomenal. So it was, there was kind of a lot of fear about it because we didn't know what to expect, right? Humans are the only creatures that are predictive, right? And so we predict outcomes that are largely unrealistic for the most part, and so the weirdest part was like going to the stores and trying to get stuff and just not having anything, and just seeing people just completely exasperated, just not knowing what to do because we had virtually no leadership. We had nobody in the leadership position was like, hey, this is what you need to do. Probably don't freak out and buy all the toilet paper. You know what I mean? There's enough groceries for everybody. There was nobody doing that. So everybody just panicked and bought all the stuff, And so trying to, transition into building an online business from scratch, that was pretty challenging. And then, right when I got that online coaching business, I was coaching group classes online. Right when I got that up and started, May 15th comes around, everybody opens, and then nobody's doing it again. And I'm like, come on. So it's just like a constant adaptation process. And it was more like, just like, I'm a martial artist also doing Jiu Jitsu. It's just like Jiu Jitsu where you have to constantly be like, okay, what are we doing now? You can't really predict something because then you'll get caught in something else. You can't predict an arm lock because then you'll get caught in a choke. And so that's exactly what I was doing, is just trying to stay focused on the moment and then provide leadership for people in my profession. And that's kind of what my podcast did at that point was, well, all these people that I've been asking questions, I'm going to ask them how they're handling it. What are they doing? And how are they working through this? And then putting that on my podcast. So I did I did probably 30 podcasts just because I had the time, my wife's a nurse. And so she was like on the front lines of all this stuff. And it was just crazy. And now it's just super normal. Just this new high level of stress that we have, to the point where even the governments are like, hey, UFOs are real. And we're like, okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Stuff that would be newsworthy kind of passes by quickly. Yeah. Listening to you, there's this real desire to learn.
Yeah.
And in that, one approach that you take to that is really dialogue, just open dialogue.
Right.
And so in the adaptation process to what's going on currently in your evolution with it, a lot of that involved talking with others, hearing what others were doing, and then applying that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. You threw something in there that I want to check in about.
Yeah.
Because I was reading about you on your website.
Yep.
You mentioned the jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you also have a career in MMA, a previous career.
So if you mean career as one horrific amateur loss, then yeah, that's
Absolutely I do.
Yeah.
That's a career. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a weird dude in the aspect where I just charge into things that scare me, right?
Yeah,
so I'm a comic book dork. I wear glasses. That's just like the typical person that gets bullied, right? And so I was just bullied all through middle school and high school, just relentlessly, because I was scrawny and small and weird, and you know what I mean? And so I got married, and then I got divorced shortly thereafter, and just was wildly depressed from the divorce, and was drinking a lot of alcohol, smoking a lot of cigarettes, eating a lot of really terrible food, and it just got to the point where I was like, I need to change something. And so I quit drinking and smoking, and then was like, well, I'm afraid of confrontation. Let's go do fighting. It seems like the thing to do, And so,
well, yeah, I guess some people would come to that conclusion.
Right. Well, it's so just from that experience, it's like, what are you afraid of? Something that you don't know anything about, right?
Yeah.
And so the more you learn about that, the less afraid of it you are. And so, I trained for 3 years. I lost. So at that point, I started out at 270 pounds, and I weighed in for my fight at 190.
Oh, man.
And I was 2 weeks out from my fight, and the guy I was fighting wasn't losing weight. And so they're like, hey, can you fight at 200? And that's when I stepped on the scale and was 190 pounds. I was like, sure, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he actually ended up cutting weight to 205.
Oh, wow.
So he probably dropped 15, 20 pounds to get to 205, and I weighed 191 with all my clothes on.
Oh, so you're weighing, you're going against this guy that's big.
Yeah. And he bulldozed me. And I did the best that I could. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like what I was talking about with like the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing right now?
Yeah.
And so, you know, like at the time I was really confident in my striking and I knew I hit really hard, but then you hit that guy really hard and then nothing happens and you're like, whoa, okay, now what are we doing? You know, and it was just like, it was the most surreal experience ever because, you know, I survived round one and then went to my corner and he was talking to me. And I actually talked to my cornerman like a month ago about this, and he was giving me really good advice, but I didn't hear a thing. I couldn't hear the crowd. I couldn't hear him.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear anything. I was just nodding at him. And then he handed me a water bottle, and I drank it and just gave it back and nodded at him some more and turned around and was just fighting this guy again.
Yeah.
You know, and then that's where he TKO'd me in the first minute of the second round. But it was just like, it was a weird thing. And I don't think I've ever told this story on a podcast, but, you know, I had this huge cut on the top of my head.
Yeah.
And I was just bruised and swollen all over my face. And I was fighting in a town called Lordsburg, New Mexico, which has like a population of like 3 people. And, you know, the only restaurant they had that was open was like an Arby's. And
this is phenomenal.
And I'd been cutting weight for like 2 months, and I was just like, I just want like a Pepsi or something. And so I'm going and I'm like talking to, like making my order, and my cut starts bleeding. So they had, you know, they just put like the Vaseline with the coagulant in it, right, on my cut. And so it just starts bleeding down my face, and I just turn around and grab a napkin and slam it on there and start asking the lady for more food. And she just turned around, was like, I can't do this, and walked away. And I was like, come on, I need my food.
I'm hungry.
And so the manager had to come up and finish taking my order. But that was like, it's just it's the most ridiculous thing ever.
Oh man, Arby's, little double cheddar beef.
Yeah, Arby's.
I'm trying to understand what part of this story made it horrific for you. Was it the double cheddar, or was it the cut on the head?
Some small town in New Mexico, hitting up Arby's, blacking out.
Yeah.
It's
phenomenal.
It was actually, my mom was there watching, so it was really more horrific for her than it was for me.
Yeah.
You know, because she couldn't do anything and I was doing everything I could. So I don't know. It was interesting. Yep.
Dang. Well, it sounds like you jumped just straight in, cannonball into MMA. It sounds like had your fight, and that was your career. How did it evolve from there? Where'd you go?
So
laid down the gloves after the match.
Yeah, hung them up, man, in the rafters.
After that, I just started doing just jiu-jitsu tournaments, and so I did. You know, my very first jiu-jitsu tournament, I got just the heck beat out of me in this cage fight like a couple months earlier. And, you know, we start grappling, and then I was like, oh, this guy can't hit me. This is way better. And so it was so much more fun once I got rid of that anxiety, you know. And so I did 3 jiu-jitsu tournaments, and then to prepare for my first one, I started CrossFit. You know, I kind of had my fight team disbanded, so I was trying to find different jiu-jitsu schools that I just wasn't jiving with here in town, and then CrossFit just became my thing. And so I did CrossFit for 8 years, and you know, eventually just got super burned out on that, and was just trying to figure it out after that. And so now I'm into mountain biking really hard, because when I was a kid I grew up riding BMX. So from like 14 to 20 I rode BMX. So back in August, my wife was like, I bought a bike and you're buying one too. And I was like, okay. All so right. As soon as I got on that thing, that little kid was so stoked. Yeah. And so that's my new thing. So now I'm just, all my time in the gym is trying to make myself better at mountain biking and make myself more resilient, because I know that I'm going to fall eventually, and I just want to be as robust as possible, which is what I try and do with my clients too, is just make them as robust as they can be, and just give them a bunch of different movement solutions so that they don't get injured as much.
No crashes yet then?
No.
You implied that's a future tense thing.
Correct.
Wow. Good for you.
Predictive.
Yeah. And so, those BMX skills,
Translate.
they show through pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm really kind of surprised at what I still have, even though I haven't ridden in like 20 years.
Yeah.
So much so that the first bike I bought was like a $800 hardtail, and I destroyed that thing in like 40 days. Like, it was in the shop, and I was just like, this is insane. And so I was talking to my friend who owns the bike shop behind Eat and Run, Flagstaff Bike and Fitness, and I was like, you need to find me a bike that doesn't break. And so he was like, well, we have this downhill rental that you can buy. And I'm like, cool, I'll buy it. So it went up substantially. It went from like the way I've been comparing it is like I just went from a 92 Honda Civic to a Cadillac. It's just, it's amazing. Yeah.
Plush and cushy. You got a downhill rig.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that maybe this is the route. I was noticing this pattern, right? So you went into MMA and you said you got your bum kicked, and then you went into Jiu Jitsu and got the heck beat out of you. I was starting to feel concerned for you. So mountain biking, maybe this is good.
But he's also anticipating he's going to crash on the mountain bike.
Well, just because I know me well enough, right? Like, I've been with me my whole life. I know me pretty good. Yeah. And so, I was just a disaster when I was riding BMX all the time,
Yeah.
But Jiu-Jitsu, actually, I was 50-50 on wins and losses. So...
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Way better.
Yeah, no doubt.
Way better than my MMA career.
And also, you skipped CrossFit, so he's had this gradual transition away from people punching him in the face.
Yes.
So rigorous exercise, and now we're on a mountain bike.
Yeah,
and this
literally almost immediately. Just severely broken noses and the deviated septums and not in it anymore.
Yeah, like, I feel relieved that you're going into mountain biking. Like, let's go that path.
Yeah,
this is good.
When mountain biking is the safest choice.
Thing. Yeah. Oh, man. So Jesse, I want to go back just a sec. You referenced growing up BMXing. I saw on your website that you born and raised in Flagstaff.
Yes, sir.
Selling dams.
Damn, we got a free Colin camper.
A free?
Free. I have a free pickup camper that says Colin Camper on it. It's a Colin camper.
All right, there we go.
But the person writes this: I know nothing about this. These are all the photos I have, which there are 2. The camper is located down FR 151 near the base of Humphreys. It takes about 45 minutes to get to the camper from Flagstaff. When snow starts to fall, it won't be possible to drive a truck out there.
So now's the time. You got to jump on this. ASAP.
Exactly. Get on this. Meow. And it says it has been sitting in this spot for 30 plus years. I have no idea of the actual condition of the structure of the camper. It will be empty before pickup. You'll need a truck to scoop this up. You'll need a few guys to pick this up, to load it up. There's nothing at the camper to use to pick it up. It will not deliver. Will not be able to assist in loading.
I'm gonna say the marketing on this one is a little lacking.
I don't know. I thought you were gonna go the other direction. I thought you were gonna say it's pretty premiere. Like, they're breaking it down here. We don't know anything. We got 2 photos.
They're straightforward and direct. I just don't know that you're gonna convince someone on this one with this description.
All you need to do is go about 45 minutes down the road
to find
bring
something
a truck to scoop this up and bring some friends to put it on the truck.
This thing that we know nothing about.
Yeah. Well, this condition is listed as fair. I think we have
fair's good.
There's a great opportunity for someone here with this free Colin camper.
Yeah. This is a good project camper.
If you want a project and just getting it to your home to be your project, it's yours.
What's the post ID on this one?
We got 722-1134-102.
Get dams.
So Jesse, I want to go back just a sec. You referenced growing up BMXing. I saw on your website that you born and raised in Flagstaff.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Have you been here your whole life?
Whole life.
Never left.
I've left a few times, but for pretty short stints. So when I went to massage school, I initially went to massage school right out of high school. And so I lived in San Diego at that point, and I was traveling back and forth because they were short, intensive classes. So then I could come back and put it into practice. But, then I was 18, and when you're 18, you're an idiot. You don't know how to do anything, much less run a business, right? And so I just kind of started off all the other jobs. And then I lived in Camp Verde for a little while. And then in my first marriage, I moved to Virginia for 6 months. But other than that, I've been in Flagstaff for the most part.
The boomerang effect is real.
It is.
You kind of go out and you come back.
Yeah. Yep.
Tell us a little bit about your connection to Flagstaff, like growing up here, and then what it's like now. How is it different? Anything like that?
It's wildly different, man. There's so many. Like, so for instance, for the people that are from here and around here, the that whole gigantic complex where Whole Foods is. Like when I first started CrossFit in 2010, I got lost on a 5K and ran through those empty dirt lots. You know what I mean? And now this just huge monstrosity of whatever. Yeah. And it's just, we have all these gigantic student housing complexes going in all over the place. And, it's like Flagstaff is one of those places where you shouldn't really be in a hurry ever because you're going to be so frustrated because it's not built for traffic. It's just built for frustration. You know what I mean? And so it's, and it seems as though our leadership is like, we should create more traffic problems and no solutions. Yeah. Let's get it.
The infrastructure is a little behind what the population is ballooned to.
Right. Yeah. And so, just the growth, but it is a really great place to live, although it is really expensive, and we're just still trying to navigate that and figure that out. But I mean, I've taken education courses all over the United States, and every time I come back here, I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad. Like driving in Chicago is the worst. Like, yeah. And then you just come back to Flag, and you're like, oh, there's no toll roads. This is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all very different. It really begs, your relation to Flagstaff begs one really important question.
Yeah.
Lake Mary.
Yeah.
Come on, Dan. Boohoo or booyah?
I have a mixed. It's mixed. So I've really been into like the stand-up paddleboarding. I've been trying to like save up and get one, but I would never swim in that thing.
Come on now. I think he's just trying to appease both you and I.
No, I'm serious. Like, I love being on the water. Like, that's if I could move anywhere and actually afford it, it would probably be like San Diego. I love San Diego. Yeah. That's where a majority of my education courses I've gone to, and I have a lot of friends out there, and I just love being around the water. So I'm like, I'm a beach bum that lives on a mountain, essentially.
So why are you more comfortable swimming in those bodies of water than Lake Mary?
That's a great question.
Here we go.
Because there's no.
Let's hear this irrational response.
No, dude.
No, it's a good question. Yeah. I have no idea. I can't.
Oh no.
Because there's murderers in the ocean that are really proficient at it.
And still, it's better. It's more appealing
than Lake Mary.
Yeah. Yes,
this is unbelievable.
My man Jesse coming through. Let me ask you a question, Dr. Be Nice.
Yeah.
How many times have you swam in Lake Mary?
I swam in Lake Mary.
Like swam.
Well, doggy paddle.
I don't swim. Not getting flipped over in your kayak.
Yeah, I did flip a 6-foot boat in that joint. Huh?
Yeah.
Oh man.
In the flat water.
Flat water. Yeah. Well, I don't really swim, Dan, so I don't even really know how to answer that question. So maybe 0 if you focus on the swim part. If you talk about being in the water and trying to keep your mouth not in the water, then yeah absolutely.
Yeah. And what Jesse basically shared is he's a connoisseur of water, living in a mountain town, and he can acknowledge not the most appealing water.
I'm just curious about the murderers thing. That was the thing. I was
Sharks, bro.
Oh, I thought you were referring to people.
No.
Yeah, out in San Diego,
Like,
they
what
have
pirates are hanging out? Are we talking about the military? Like, who's in the... Yeah.
No, those sharks are pretty terrifying. And so as soon as you brought up, like, why are you more comfortable swimming in the ocean? I'm like, I don't know. Because, you could just be bit in half in any second out there.
Yeah, and still, it's more appealing.
Totally.
Not because of the pirates.
Or the military.
Right.
Just out there murdering people.
I mean,
absolutely.
Off the coast
Like,
of San Diego.
You would never know.
I would rather swallow ocean water all day than even get a little bit of Lake Mary water in my mouth.
What is in Lake Mary water that's so bad? This is the thing, and I'm just...
It's more
it just
of
doesn't compute.
I feel like it's a legend thing. Like, you're not really sure, but a lot of people talk about it, so you're kind of convinced that that's the way that it is.
Yeah.
It's just
It's just a legend.
Well, I swim there. It's mud and silt. I've told you this. Literally, when I swim there, it's like your teeth is sifting dirt.
And I don't see why that's so unappealing. Yeah. Like, what's the big problem there?
My patience and acceptance is just not as refined as yours.
So the earth is breaking into your precious space.
Yeah.
That's a
The gap between your teeth.
Man. I'm just glad that we have a Flagstaff native calling it for what it is.
This is the first time this has happened, Jesse. So this is a big deal. Dan's been trying to make this happen for months, if not years at this juncture.
The real underlying cause of me being on the podcast is to talk about Lake Mary.
Just around your history to Flagstaff, just that portion.
And Dan, I guess you probably just want to shut down the interview now.
That's
Is that kind of where we're at?
There we go.
We got one.
No.
It was good talk, guys. Good talk.
No, it's interesting to hear. I actually, don't judge me, but I've only lived here 10 years.
Yeah.
And so for me, over the course of 10 years, I've seen Flagstaff really change just in that short span of time. I can't imagine how much has changed since
100%.
A couple decades worth of living here.
Yeah.
One of the most staggering, I don't know if you remember that, but the intersection by where McDonald's and Sam's Club is, Ponderosa and Butler, right? Like, that used to just be a T.
Yeah.
And to me, that intersection is so representative of what it's like now.
Right. So the 4th Street overpass was game changing for me because I used to just cross the tracks right there on my BMX bike all the time. Yeah. And then when they just built an overpass there, I was like, what? It's amazing. Because where that Five Guys car wash is, that's where you would have to drive down in order to come back to go to 4th Street. And that was like the most dangerous intersection ever. People get in car wrecks there all the time. Yeah. And, just getting over that was huge.
So then what is the boomerang appeal? What kept bringing you back?
Failure, I guess.
The appeal of failure, or the experience.
So that's your parents are kind of your safety net while you're trying to figure out your life as an adult, right? And so that's pretty much why I would always come back, is because I was like, well, I'm going to try this. And then that failed. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going back home, So that's just how it worked. The longer you're in a place, the more baggage you have. So now I'm like more motivated to kind of get out of here than ever. Yeah. But it's, once you just establish yourself in a spot, it's hard to get out, just especially if you're an independent business owner. That's one of the scariest things, and one of the reasons why I'm really trying to figure out this online business thing, because I don't have a whole lot of confidence in America right now as far as handling pandemics, for obvious reasons. So the in-person practice that I have is really fragile for the first time in my career. And so, if I can get my online presence more profitable, then I'll be able to go anywhere and do anything without having to worry about starting over again, because that's really scary. Because, you guys starting, it's like the same thing with you guys starting a practice, being like, cool, so how do I get people in here? It's really, it's really profoundly difficult, because my business is super simple. Hey, are you in pain? I'll get you out of pain. And people are like, yeah, but I don't know. And I'm like, what do you not know? Just you're in pain right now and you're complaining about it, and I can help. And it's just really interesting how difficult it is for people to commit to kind of lifestyle change. Because if you're, chronic pain, or if you're overweight, or if you, you're depressed, or you have anxiety or whatever, it takes a lifestyle change to get out of that hole, right? And just some people just aren't willing to get that drive to like get that commitment going. It's really interesting. And that's one of those things where I'm just trying to really unpack that and see where that's coming from.
Yeah, no doubt. As like in behavior change to being like the Russian tank of energy consumption, like it takes a lot to get moving, to get out of a rut in a lot of ways. You were talking about like building your online presence, and something with the pandemic, right, is like, it sounds like your profession, our profession, we've been sort of, we had choice, but we went the virtual route in order to continue our business and our work. I was wondering, so the pandemic helps you do that. How do you continue to bolster your online presence? What does that look like for you?
That's a good question. And I've been using, I think I was talking about this before we started recording, but I used my Sober October to get off of social media, really. And so social media is kind of the way, right? So that's how you provide the best information on what it is that you do and how you can contribute to the recovery of whatever somebody has, whatever their ailment is. And so I've been trying to figure out how to do that for the last couple of years, just how to get the attention. And I have a hard time with, like, drug companies are the best at it, right? Like, hey, do you feel terrible all the time? Yeah, I do. Cool. Here's a pill. You know what I mean? And so we are instant gratification nation right now. With Amazon Prime, if it doesn't get there in 2 days, we're just like, oh my God. And that's how, like, that was another thing with like the pandemic. I ordered some workout shorts in May, and they got here last week. You know what I mean?
Nice.
I completely forgot about them, and I was just looking in my mailbox. What is this? And so, but people like, so, like, we'll talk about joint function for a second. So like a lot of people, if they have knee pain, a majority of the time that knee pain is coming from an immobile ankle, right? And so it's just like strength building on anything. If you want to build a more mobile ankle, it's going to take time. And so when people ask me, hey, how can I fix my squat? Well, you need a more mobile ankle. How long is that going to take? 6 months. I don't want to do it. Okay. That's just how it goes. You know what I mean? I can sit there and have this hour-long conversation with them about why that's important and why their squat's plateauing and why they're not going to get better. But if they're not willing to put in the effort, then should I be putting in more effort? I don't know. And so that's where trying to get more eyes on, and that's where, like the Gary Vaynerchuks of the world are just saying you need more attention, because the online presence can expand out past beyond Flagstaff, which is kind of a really interesting and weird thing if you're so used to being local all the time, right? Because then you can access more people, and there's 300 million people in America, you know what I mean? And they all have pain. So, how do I reach them? And that's been like the constant question. It was like consuming. And so that's why, I needed to kind of reset and take that whole month off and kind of figure out like a whole new plan and try and figure out where I can get the most attention. So right now I'm kind of thinking about leaning more towards YouTube because there's so much going on Instagram, and people really aren't looking at anything.
Just so quick. Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of what I realized. So my first like 3 or 4 days of Sober October was, the second I felt any kind of, I don't want to say negative emotion, but like discomfort or anxiety or any kind of like depression, I would just immediately grab my phone and open it. But then the app wouldn't be there, and I'm like, oh, well, now I guess I got to sit here and figure out what this is. Yeah. Why am I so uncomfortable right now? Why do I need this distraction from like what I'm doing, which is like literally sitting here watching TV, that's not a distraction enough. Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? So it gave me a lot of time to kind of reintroduce me to myself and be more introspective, which I haven't done in a long time just because I've been so focused on trying to get that Instagram following or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how consuming that platform can be.
Yeah.
And then to even just to break into it, before we started this, I wasn't very into Instagram, like rarely posted that kind of thing. And so we saw like, well, let's have a social media presence. That's the way to sort of get things out, like you're saying. And the time that it requires, sometimes I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, this is so much more time than I would ever want to give to this virtual world. And then, like you're saying, the collective attention span of the thing is like, it's like less than a second.
Right, because they're literally just swiping. They're not looking at anything. You know what I mean? And so it's I have a weird relationship with it because that's where I learned a lot of information. That's where I was got exposed to a lot of these different people that I wanted to learn from, and that was a huge catalyst for my educational path, right?
Yeah.
And so, but now I'm just like, well, what am I doing on here, and so I have this obsessive personality, so whatever I'm into it 100%. And so, like I said, I get this new mountain bike, I'm like, well, I need to know everything there is to know about mountain bikes right now. So like, what's the best thing? Where do I need to go? What do I need to learn? Where do I find trails? Like, and it's just we just live in this weird age of information where you can have anything you want at your fingertips. Like, I want to ride up the dog food trail and then back down Moto. Has anybody done that? You YouTube it and somebody's done it. And you're like, cool. So this is what the trail looks like. So I don't have any surprises. It's weird. You can look up literally anything. And just, I don't know, people are focused on the Kardashians or some weird, like, doesn't even.
You can look up anything, and then now the validity of that information is now harder to have trust or confidence in. So it's all this stuff on the surface, and then half that stuff now you don't know the depth of it or the accuracy of it. It's a tough world to exist in. So you kind of reset, you recalibrated and said, I'm going to go to YouTube. That may be a way to get to the depth of the value of what I do clinically and show that. In talking about your professional work and why it was recommended that we spend time with you is one of those areas of emphasis of yours being the psychosomatic expression.
Right.
So I'm curious, actually, if you would you be willing to define what you mean when you speak about psychosomatic expression? All right, selling dams. Yeah, I got something for you.
What you got?
This is perfect for you.
Okay.
Yeah. I actually think your wife and your girls are going to love this. It's a 1950s doll pillow. Yeah. So let me shoot you the picture.
Okay,
here.
let me see the picture.
Yeah, here's the picture. And then could you offer a description?
Ooh.
What that is?
Super nice and clean, all caps. I don't know. That looks like a nightmare. That looks like it's $20.
It is only $20 here in Flagstaff, AZ. And it's basically like, imagine if a doll, one of those dolls that maybe gives you nightmares at night, is cut off at the midsection and then sewn into a pillow.
It had a child with a picnic table cloth.
Okay, so it's only $20. It looks good. I think this would be great for your house.
Okay.
I think your girls would love it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
At the end, I think this is what I'm getting your family for Christmas.
Okay, please do.
Listen to the description.
Okay.
I mean, someone's gonna jump on this. It's in excellent condition.
Yep.
1950s doll pillow. We have had it forever. Time to let someone else enjoy this great doll pillow.
Yeah.
So they're like generous.
Yeah. They see that it's time to unhook from this doll pillow and allow for someone else to carry the joy that it has provided them for their lives.
That's what I'm spraying.
So we got a spraying. So we got a merry-go-round. We want to keep that momentum going here.
It's in excellent condition. You got to jump on this. People are going to get this. The post ID is 7214-112137. Get dams.
Nailed it. Get dams.
Would you be willing to define what you mean when you speak about psychosomatic expression?
So, yeah, this is where it gets complicated. And it can go in the weeds in any different kind of direction, right? And so, and it's all individualized. So the way that I would explain it is it's an association with a traumatic event that the person hasn't properly vetted out and suppressed, right? And so that's what a trigger is, right? You don't get triggered by a new thing. It's something that was already there. That's a similar thing, right? And so, like, are you guys familiar with the term neurotags?
No,
I
I don't think we use it.
Okay, so like, so the best way to describe it is, thousands of years ago, I'm walking with Cody through the jungle, and he gets eaten by a tiger, and you're like, well, that was terrifying. And so,
that's happy,
right?
That's
And
smiling.
so that event becomes a neurotag, and then everything associated with that event, rocks falling, leaves rustling, whatever it is, gets attached to that neurotag. So if you ever see any of those things, then you're hyper aware, right? So now, in this current day and age, we have a more mundane life, quote unquote, but we still have these triggers. And so those triggers are those neurotags firing up, saying that, hey, this was a traumatic event for you in the past, and this is why you're expressing this way now. But we just start yelling or whatever it is.
Well, and even, that happens generationally.
Yeah.
Epigenetics. The term that we use is epigenetics.
Yep.
That would pass along those neural tags. So
100%.
That when those sensations, when you perceive those sensations, it may lead to the subconscious information of like alert.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we have all these different metaphors that we use. And so that's why the intake process is so important for me, is just having people discuss what their pain is, right? And so like some of the metaphors that we use, that guy's a pain in the neck. I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. That was gut wrenching. I have a broken heart. You know what I mean? All that stuff matters, right? And so another way to describe it is, like if you have like a traumatic injury, like the first thing that happens is you take a big, deep, sharp breath in, right? And so then that emotion of that event is stored in that diaphragm, which is a critical component of core stability, right? And so if your core is unstable, then you start developing back pain or, breathing problems or whatever it is, right? And that's because if you use your diaphragm to breathe, then you're triggering that emotional response to that event. And so I think where people get confused is that if I say, hey, you have emotional pain, that I'm saying that it's all in their head. And that's not true. You're absolutely experiencing that pain, right? And so there's another guy, his name's Dr. John Sarno, and I read a whole bunch of his books. He has one of them is the Mind-Body Prescription, but he talks about pain is easier to deal with than that traumatic event, right? And so, if you were, physically abused by a parent, and then you suppress that memory because it's just too traumatic for you to deal with, then you're going to start to manifest low back pain in some aspect. You know what I mean? Because the pain is easier, like I said, than dealing with the fact that your protector was abusing you, that kind of thing. And so that could be from car wrecks, that could be from a perceived trauma, because, children see events and experience events differently than adults do. So what the child in you would perceive as a traumatic event, the adult would be like, what are you talking about? That's not even a thing. You know what I mean? Like even just a dog on a leash barking at you could be traumatic, right? And so it just kind of goes down all these different directions, and the vetting process, I think, is really important. And that's just kind of asking the right questions to get to the right answers. Right?
Yeah. So do you essentially make an effort through your assessment, through what you just described as vetting, to try and distinguish what of this seems to come from an emotional place and what of it can be purely physiological? Are you able to suss some of that out?
Yeah. So like I said, it's the questions and it's the metaphors that they use, right? So like I had a client come in and they said, my neck feels like an immovable brick wall. And I'm like, who are we talking about? My roommate, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, wow, okay. So that's the thing, you know what I mean? Or, you know, it could go in so many different directions. Like people that hate their jobs and then they spend 40 hours a day or 40 hours a week at that job. And that's a majority of their waking hours and they hate their life. You know what I mean? And so that could be painful, you know, like, so, and then the other way that I try to explain it to people is you don't think how you feel how you feel, you know? So like whenever you're sad, do you think sad or do you feel sad? Do you think depressed? Do you think anxious? Like all that stuff comes out somewhere. You know what I mean? So if you're not, like that's where your guys' profession comes in. If you're not talking to somebody about it, or if you're not introspective and being like, okay, where's this coming from? You know what I mean? What happened here? Why am I so angry? Why am I so upset right now? Then you're suppressing it and then it starts to come out. So another way to explain it is like you want to think about pain as something's wrong. It's a request for change, right? And so if you have no particular event, if you just woke up one day with back pain or woke up one day with knee pain and I say, was there an event that caused this? And you can't point it to a pop or a rip or whatever. Then,
so let me ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
So it could be like a specific event, or can they point to, say, I'm training for this thing and I've had consistent wear and tear. Would that equate to an event?
Correct. So that's part of that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So that would not equate to an event. So like if you were like, hey, I've been training for this marathon and you know, I've been training for 6 months and I started getting this knee pain 3 months ago. I'm going to ask you, okay, let's see how you're running. Where are your mechanics off? Because, you know, if you're doing high mileage stuff and then you're taking, you know, your legs swinging out instead of forward, then that's going to start to cause this different kind of shear effect on your knee. And then we'll just be like, okay, so you're running this way. So what we need to do is fix your mechanics of your running. You know what I mean?
Which equates to a lot of the physiology. And so if they can't point to that and you can't find the mechanics, or if there's not a specific occurring event that causes it, then you begin to question the somatic element.
Yeah. And so, so like I said, it gets complicated, right? So the nervous system can be broken down into parasympathetic and sympathetic. And so the way that I simplify that is threat or safety, right? So if somebody lays on my table and they're like, this is really tight, I'm like, why is that under threat? And so the physical response could be a muscle dysfunction. So if I test the muscle dysfunction with my muscle testing and it works, then great. If it doesn't work, okay, so then there's that fight or flight response, right? So what happens if you're under threat? You tense up. So then I do like a non-discriminate muscle test on each one of their limbs. And if every single limb tests strong, then they're under a state of threat. And then so then I start looking towards more of a psychosomatic aspect of it. Because then that usually means, just like the diaphragm thing, that means that I triggered something by triggering that muscle, right? And so then they automatically go into a threat response. And then I have to figure that out from there. And that's where my friend Joseph Schwartz came up with this, the dynamic neuromuscular assessment. And it is just bang on, and it's really weird, but you're essentially using the limbs to ask the nervous system specific questions. Is this a physical response, a physiological response, or a limbic response? And if it's a limbic response, you can then start to vet it out. Is this current? Or is it in your past? Is this yours or is it somebody else's? Is this something that is safe for me to remove? Or is this a pillar of who you are as a being, right? Because that's kind of where, like, the more I learned, the more, I don't want to say dangerous, but, you know, massage therapists are like, oh, that's tight, let's just get that elbow in there. You're like, well, no. A, that's triggering something, and B, it's under threat for a reason. So don't just dig into it, right? And so there's these events that happen to people where, well, I'm never going to let that happen to me again. And then that helped them become the person that they are today.
Protective.
Right. And so if you just yank out that pillar, that's a foundation of who they are as a being, they're going to just freak out. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's a weird kind of a dance. Right. And so like we all like remember like the first time we got bullied, or the first time that our a girlfriend or a boyfriend broke up with us, or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. The first time our parents made us sad, or whatever. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then it just like spirals from there. Mm-hmm. And then you just start shaping your life around these events, and then sometimes like bottling them down. And that's one of those reasons why I started MMA, is because I wanted to understand that violence that was brought on me for seemingly no reason. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Because I wanted to understand where they were coming from. Mm-hmm. And a majority of them are coming from a hurt space where they're being bullied themselves. Mm-hmm. And so they have no other expression other than to impart that upon other people. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's just that, it's like, the more I dive into my profession, the more I'm like, God, people are weird. I don't even know how we made it this far. You know what I mean?
Well, it's really interesting to hear about you talk about how if you were working on someone on a table, mm-hmm. that you would take into account if they're tight here before just immediately digging in. I want to be conscientious of what I've assessed of them so far. Like it sounds like all along the way through your assessment process and everything, you keep in mind whether there could be something else there. And then if a muscle's tight, you would take that into consideration.
Right. And so I don't know if it's similar for your guys' profession, but if there's something that's not working, like my clients appreciate me taking the time to step back and be like, why isn't this happening? Mm-hmm. What's going on here? Mm-hmm. What have I not tried? Mm-hmm. What's different? Mm-hmm. Like, what's different about you than when you came in? Mm-hmm. And so, there's another thing that you can feel like when you hit an emotional trigger, is that the energy in the room changes, right? Mm-hmm. And so like everybody knows what that feels like. If you got in trouble at school, and then your dad came home and your mom told you, and then he walked in your room, you're like, oh my God, like you just the change in the air, mm-hmm. so that you can feel when they get protective, mm-hmm. and then know that you need to back off, mm-hmm. So it's just being just like the jiu-jitsu thing, man, like just what's happening now, what can I do?
Flow with it.
Yeah, just what are we doing? Mm-hmm. And sometimes I have to ask them to reschedule, mm-hmm. because they're just they're in such a protective state that there's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. And so then they have to come back later, and then there's sometimes I have to refer out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? God, Joseph Schwartz is such a genius, but sometimes you can be like, hey, this is the emotion that you're feeling, and this is what happened when you were 5 years old, and they're just like, oh God, all right. You know what I mean? And then
here we go. Yeah.
And then that tension's gone, and it's really interesting.
I was wondering, because you said like, what was the name of it? Neuromuscular dynamic, something like that, the assessment?
So dynamic neuromuscular assessment.
Okay. Yeah. So with that, you were saying, I was really struck when you were saying like from that, you can sort of assess whether the response is limbic, physiological, and there was one other thing that you said. Physical. Yep. And do those three different, if limbic, then mm-hmm. how do you approach it?
So then you start to ask, is it current? And is it safe? Because if it's current, then it's like, well, what do you have going on right now? The people have to be willing to understand and be willing to work on something if it's an emotional response, mm-hmm. right? Because if they're not, then it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, okay, well, I'm not the therapist for you. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have to go see somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? We're both very familiar with that experience.
Right.
So the thing I was wondering is, again, if it's limbic
mm-hmm.
Versus physiological versus physical.
Yeah.
Is it the way you're talking? Like, I'm wondering, are the actual interventions similar in what you're doing, but there's like a dialogue around it that's different, or like a context of it that's different?
The next main question that I ask is it safe? Right. And so if it's safe, then we just dive in. Okay, let's figure out when this happened. Let's figure out why you're responding this way. Because, Dr. John Sarno alludes to the fact that if you are starting to manifest physical pain, then that is your body's signal to, hey, I'm ready to deal with this now. And so most of the time it's ready to come out. A lot of times it's not. And it's just whatever they're dealing with in their life is just triggering that association with that event over and over and over again to where it's becoming overwhelmed, right? Mm-hmm. So in our profession, we call it the stress bucket, right? So you have, you know, your wife, your kids, your dog, your car payment, your house payment, all that stuff. And then, you know, all you need is the water heater to break. Boom. And you're just over it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of the same thing, but most people aren't aware of that, right? So then they have this one thing and then they're just like, God, I've just been pissed at my wife or my husband every single day and I have no idea why. You know, because one of the most powerful emotions that we have is rage, right? And so if it's, you know, like a lot of other inherited emotions that I find are like abandonment or betrayal, like all these just really just incredibly strong, just visceral things where you can just really feel it, you know? And it's like, then it's just stuck in there forever. So then any kind of abandonment or betrayal, anything that kind of resembles that, then that person's triggered, you know, and then that pain comes back, you know?
Yeah, it reminds me of how irritable Cody was when his jorts got ripped. And,
dude.
He just was super irritable. I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and his stress bucket overflowed.
Yeah. And
he just exemplified rage.
You know, my stress bucket was about at a 1 out of 100, and then the jorts getting ripped put it over 100.
Yeah.
Like, it accounted for every piece of stress in the bucket.
So
man.
you had 1, and then you went to 151 because of 150 points from the jorts.
That was a tough thing for me, man.
If you have an attachment to those jorts, man, it's the thing.
Oh, well, yeah, we could talk about that. We could go down that road if you like.
His attachment to those jorts was evidenced by the stains that were all over him.
And the stench.
Yeah.
It's like, is all that kind of making sense? Because it's, you know, once you kind of die, like I said, once you get into the weeds, it kind of goes, it could go any direction.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think it's really fascinating to think, because we sit on the other side, like, right, we kind of view it through like a psychology lens, and so we have a very different approach in what we go with this, you know, like if you're doing massage therapy and that kind of thing, I think it's, for us, is really interesting to hear what it's like through your lens and through your profession, even though like kind of what we're dealing with is probably pretty similar in its nature.
Right. Yeah. And so, I don't think I mentioned this part, but, you know, like what Dr. John Sarno said about, you know, if that pain manifests, then they're ready to acknowledge it. So sometimes all they need to do is acknowledge it, and then they're done. They're like, oh, okay, I know what that is, and then they're done. And other times it's like a series of events. Like I think like there's gonna be, I'm very curious to see what the fallout of 2020 is as a whole. You know what I mean? Because like the amount of micro traumas that everybody's been experiencing since, you know, March has been substantial.
It will be interesting to see the fallout from all of that. I wonder if you would have, if people experience pain, what's your first piece of advice, which I know is super general, because as you've enumerated over and over, I think there's this underlying message about how unique it all can be.
Right.
But if people are experiencing pain, what's your one piece of feedback or the first step they can take?
Ask why. Like what I said about social media and just constant distraction, people have no idea who they are or what they're about, or they're not in touch with themselves at all. You know what I mean? So just sitting there and asking, why am I in pain? You know, just why am I in pain? So like if you were training for a marathon and you're like, well, I've had pain for the last 3 months. What happened? Did you increase your mileage 3 months ago? Well, yeah. Okay. So then that's likely a mechanical issue, right? So then let's fix your biomechanics. Let's figure out how you're running. Why are you running? You know, does it happen more at the end of your run or at the beginning? You know, is it after your run? You know what I mean? So if it happens when you're fatigued, then that's a strength issue. So we need to address that. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's, you know, like I said, that whole assessment process is incredibly important. Just asking people why, right? And so if you can't, well, why does my back hurt? I have no idea. Were you lifting something? Did you feel a pop? Well, no. Okay. Well, then when did your back start hurting? 2 months ago. Well, what happened 2 months ago? Well, we got this new boss, and the person's terrible, and they made my life a living hell. Okay, well, that's probably a source of your back pain. You know what I mean? So it's like you can, if you ask questions, then you solve problems, right? That's where we kind of, our professions connect, is we're just trying to figure out why.
What's going on here?
Right.
Yeah. It really is profound. Like, you really are enumerating, like, being mindful, being self-aware.
But it's a terrifying process. How do I fix that? Do I want to be that way?
Well, it's super interesting. Thanks so much for giving all the feedback, even like a specific statement like that. You know, one thing that we have talked about with other guests is their relationship to Flagstaff, because that's a common thread of people that we spend time with. And I know that you've spent your life here, or a majority of your life, with the exceptions of the training programs that you've participated in, some brief moves. Yeah. But in one or two sentences, how would you summarize what Flagstaff is to you?
I mean, it's beautiful and it's small, right? And so it's more, you know, and it being small is both a blessing and a curse, right? Because it's so interconnected. And so, you know, if there's bridges that you burn, everybody knows about it. If there's if you do a good job, everybody knows about it. You know what I mean? And then just the beauty, man. That's like one thing that kind of sparked my decision to get off of social media and spend more time on myself, is just like taking the time. It takes time to ride your bike somewhere. And when you're riding your bike, you're like, wow, the leaves are changing. Wow. And you're just like looking at how beautiful this place really is, you know? And it's just breathtaking sometimes.
Jesse, so before we wrap it up, I just want to say thank you so much for sitting with us, and thanks for your patience earlier again while we were getting set up. I did want to see, you know, if for any of our listeners, if they wanted to find you, what would be the best way to come across your stuff?
So all of my information is on my website, which is kokoromovement.com. And then my Instagram is kokoro.m as in Michael, V as in Victor, M as in Michael, T as in Tom.
We got a Michael, Victor, Michael, Tom?
Yep.
Okay.
That's it. And that's where you can find a majority of my stuff right now. YouTube channel is coming up soon. You know, I've been on this weight loss journey right now, so I'm 8 pounds down, so I'm going to document that. That's so that's going to be on a different YouTube channel, and all that stuff will be found on my Instagram.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking your time and spending the time with us.
Absolutely. That was really fun. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, right on. No doubt. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. We got that social distance space back.
We back. We're not using that same microphone anymore, huh?
That's nice.
Gosh, this is so much more comfortable.
It is. It really is. And I want you to admit that it's probably more comfortable for me than you. I got a little bit more of a personal space issue than you do. Like a preference for personal space.
Yeah, there's a strong barrier around that. Like, it's very important to you to have your space.
It is.
So when I'm leaning in next to you, talking on your microphone, there's probably several things that are upsetting about that.
Yeah, just my nervous system goes into overdrive.
There's probably an olfactory element to that is particularly bothersome to you as well, huh?
From like coffee breath or what?
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, that microphone probably stinks now.
You do like that dark.
Yeah, I love that dark.
Get some of that black.
Gets me through the day, man.
Gets you through the day.
Well, we just got Jesse out of here. We got the pictures for the gram.
We did. We got the pictures for the gram. Got that knocked out.
Yeah. So tell me about the interview, Dan. What stuck out to you?
Yeah. For me, it's good. Couple things I noticed about him. He seemed to go through these phases in life. Like, it was clear to me, like, he kind of would like latch on to something. And I think he even described it this way. He may have used the word like obsession, talking about like, oh, this is my new obsession, or I just got this obsession. But he definitely had these tangents he would go on. And one of those, I think, was in the realm of sport and physical activity. And there was this real strong progression from just getting punched in the face to sports that potentially became safer. And now he's in mountain biking. And for some people, that would be like the more dangerous sport, but for him, that's the real safe sport.
Yeah, we might have to put that up on the gram and do a poll. And which one is more dangerous, mountain biking or MMA? And what would you say?
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
MMA.
Oh, I was thinking MMA.
Yeah.
I had an image of him that was really concerning for me. It was just him bleeding out of his head at Arby's.
In some small town in New Mexico.
In some small town in New Mexico,
with
just
his mom.
trying to get some food. Yeah.
He didn't even mention food. He mentioned a Pepsi. He just wanted a Pepsi.
Just trying to get a Pepsi.
Oh, man. Our boy
Dude.
Jesse P just trying to get a Pepsi in New Mexico with his head just opening up a gushing wound.
Yeah. And then the person at the counter being like, I can't serve you. I have to go get someone else.
Dude, what a rough night.
What a rough night, dude. Any night that ends in Arby's. If you're getting that double cheddar beef with a Pepsi, it's been a rough night. No
If
doubt.
that's your consolation.
This will help me. Oh, that triple cheddar. Yikes.
Can I get that cheddar beef with extra cheddar?
Yeah, dude. If you with a meat shake, and you are bad, you're in bad shape, man. Wherever you are.
And if the person that works at Arby's and just works on cutting those sandwiches all day can't serve you because of what you look like, it's been a real tough night.
It's been a tough night. At that point in the interview, I began to feel very concerned.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well,
oh,
but
no.
he course corrected. So he had that one fight,
Mm-hmm.
and then course corrected and gradually picked things, obsessions, or latched onto things that progressively became safer.
Yeah, so we had CrossFit, we had Jiu Jitsu, and then now mountain biking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No crashes yet, so he's on the path to
Knock on
safety.
wood. Jesse, just please keep it that way. Just stay on that bike.
Stay on that bike. Keep the rubber side down.
Rubber side down.
There you go.
There you go.
So yeah. So I noticed that. Another thing I noticed about him is that he definitely had a voracious curiosity about things. So he'd like go after things, and he was okay going traditional formats for that and non-traditional formats for that. So he had these certificate programs that he'd go get education from, and then he also just emphasized learning from others, just like dialogue with people that impressed him or that he learned from. He would read about them, or else just try and approach them and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, it was impressive on his podcast, right? He talks about just kind of like approaching people that were leaders in the field, but just some idea that it might work out, that they might be willing to come on his show and that kind of thing. And so I agree. Like it seemed like he would just go for it.
Yeah. And I listened to a handful of those leading up to this. And some of it I would get lost in because I don't know enough about either PT, coaching, or massage. But some of those professionals, he's now interviewed a few different times, and they have this like rapport. He actually has just developed rapport with people that he admired and the professionals in his field that he wanted to learn from. And now he has this like relationship and rapport with them.
Yeah, it's super cool. And it seems like you're saying kind of driven by that voracious curiosity and then also his willingness to just go all in kind of thing.
Yeah. Shoot his shot. He's kind of like
Shoot the shot, man.
It's kind of like a more successful Cody Bayles.
I don't know if that's a compliment to him. Like when you're batting zero, man. Yeah, it's a bad place to be.
Yeah. Like Cody Bayles trying to get that mic and that sound engineer husband. Didn't work, but
Strike one.
He shot his shot.
I shot my shot.
Jesse P just has more of those cards fall his way.
They've just landed for him.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you, by the way, Jesse. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I heard you mention some, Dan, that you don't know too much about PT. That surprises me, man. Party time? You're not too into that?
Not party time or physical therapy. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know either. I'm into physical therapy. I don't know a lot about it. I'm both not into party time and don't know a lot about it.
Surprises me.
Yeah, really throws you off there.
I guess if you go back to our intro episode, you at the dinner party, right?
Yeah. Counting the time.
Yeah.
Counting the time down until it's time to go.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Stationed in the observatory, checking everything out.
Yeah.
Ready to get home for that book.
Yeah, I have a question for you about the interview, though. I'm wondering what your thoughts were on what he talked about in terms of how psychosomatic expression results from emotions. Yeah, it was almost for me like where he leaves off, where he says like, you got to go work on a bit of this, is like exactly the point at which we work we pick up with people.
That's kind of where we get going.
Yeah.
Psychologists.
What were your thoughts about all the psychosomatic stuff?
Oh, super interesting. I was really curious to know, when he was talking about like, well, if there's something going on in your lower back, for instance, and it can't be explained by something that was mechanical, right? Like he was talking about mobility or maybe something off of mechanics that might explain that. That then the thought was, well, there must be something in the past, some sort of abuse or some sort of experience that might explain this. And so I did think that was pretty interesting. I was curious to know more about like, how do you then work with that? Like, how do you start drawing those connections without talking about it more, I guess? Like, I remember him saying like, it's just, we probe to see if it's safe, and if it is, then we'll continue to do our work. And I was curious to see, like, I guess I want to know how that worked itself out. But for us, I think as psychologists, right, that is where we pick up, is through language. We start to like try and piece together the story of all that. And I can't help but think Feldman Barrett also in the theory of construction. And so I think about, how do we construct our own pain based on these concepts, based on experiences, based on our language, those kinds of things.
Yeah. It's good stuff. It would be fun to even go deeper with some of that. It's cool to hear him approach it and then acknowledge that psychological factors have some influence on it, and that, at that point, that person has to deal with that side of it. Yeah. Good stuff. Real interesting.
No doubt.
Well, why don't you take us out by shouting us out?
Yep, will do. Well, first off, you can hit us up on the interwebs, www.beyondFLG.com, flag spelled
FLG.
And we are really trying to instigate them follows on the Instagrams and Twitters.
The tweeters.
How we doing on that Twitter, Dan?
I think we're like maybe 48. Maybe we reached 50. I got to go back and check.
I feel really tempted to just look right now.
I think that's the second largest following on all of Twitter.
Behind,
I think that's Lil Pump has the biggest following.
Little Pimp?
Lil Pump.
Oh, I thought it was Little Pimp according to the Prez. But at any rate, you can hit us up on Instagram, beyond_flag. We hope we have some better content for you than this Little Pump dialogue. And then you can also hit us up on the Twitter, beyond_flag.
All right.
And in the meantime,
take care.
Lovies.